I was 18 years old when I was first introduced to learning how to drive a car. A neighbor had a car, and this neighbor taught me how to drive. And at that time, you had stick shifts. You didn't have the automatic shift. And I learned how to go from first to second to third gear in reverse, and do the clutch, and do the brakes, and be careful. I enjoyed driving all the way. I drove to New York. I was the only driver in the car, but two other ladies. And I drove to Lancaster by myself. I drove to Cleveland, Ohio. I enjoyed it. I was afraid of doing highway driving there for a while, but once you get used to it, then you can do it. Between 20 and 21, I took my train trip to Chicago because I had two first cousins and an aunt in Chicago and some second cousins. My first plane trip was in 1955. And I must have been, I think in my 40s someplace. And I was scared to death. I was so afraid. I said, oh gee, I'll never be able to see my kids again because I just saw the plane crashing. And I would never get back to see my children. And I won the trip to Haiti. It was a favorite church women's contest for the black newspaper called the Pittsburgh Courier. You had to solicit couriers. And when I put my foot on that plane, I had no more fear. No more. It just took everything away from me. And I got on that plane, and I was very comfortable and relaxed. When the wheels left the ground, I knew there was no turning back because the plane had taken off. And my first destination was New York. New York took me to Miami. And from Miami, I had to change another plane. And that plane took me directly into Haiti. After I boarded the plane in Miami, the co-pilot came back and sat with me and showed me all the area view. They showed me the cockpit and showed me everything in the cockpit. So I was featured on the plane. For a horse trip going with me, we would have had to try to get up the fare for him to go because it was a trip 3 for 1, not for 2. And somebody had to stay back and take care of the children, take care of the business. So, since I won the trip for 1, not for 2, then he was left behind to take care of the household, the children, and the business. When I landed in Haiti and got into the, maybe you would call it customs, and you would have to pay $1. And so I paid my $1. And then later on I heard them say, Madame Horde, you're a guest of our country, you're a guest of our government, and we don't want your $1. So they gave me the $1 back. And from then, that time forward, there was a reception party for me. And I didn't speak their French, but there was an interpreter in the group. And they just took me around and showed me all the key spots in Haiti. And at that time, they were celebrating their freedom. And they had a big celebration going on. Big dance and everything. They taught me the Haitian meringue. And I met the president. I think his name was Duvalier. From that evening forward, it was something to do every day. I stayed in a hotel called the Sans Souci, meaning no worry. I was sitting in for breakfast one morning, and they brought me the paper, and they says, Madame, here's a paper. You're on the front headline. And I just got lots of recognition for 14 days, and was just heavenly. It was nothing but happiness down there. People were very poor, but some of the little kids would be naked in the hillsides and just singing gleefully, and they appeared very happy people. Haiti is a very poor country, but at the time I was there, they showed lots of love amongst themselves. I would get up every morning, and I had a room that was on the ocean front, and it had a terrace. And I would go out on the terrace and I would write each day on my experience in Haiti and send it back so that the Pittsburgh Courier could put it in print of my trip. And when I told them about my trip to Haiti and how I rode that little burro, and I was afraid it was going to go over the hillside, or the mountainside, or whatever. And they told me, don't be frightened because birds are very sure-footed animals. But that was my first experience of getting on a horse. We traveled all the way up the mountainside to the citadel. And that's where the Haitians were prepared to meet the French when they were going to come down and take over the country. And they were able to defeat the French because they built the citadel and they could see on all directions who entered the country. The experience I had in Haiti, as I said previously, it was like an indelible thought in my mind that will always be there. I was so happy.